Be close. Very close. Yeah, I haven't. I don't have it on. I don't know if I have it on file. Yeah.
Sure, that's what we're going to go down. That's right.
Thanks, Sarah.
Welcome to ordinary meeting of Hunters Hill Council number 4527. Could I ask you all to be upstanding? I'd like to acknowledge and show my respect to the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, of elders past, present and emerging. We're joined today by Reverend Michael Armstrong, who's going to deliver the prayer.
Let me pray. Most loving, gracious God, we do give you thanks for this land. We thank you that we know peace in this place, and we're most mindful of those places where there is no peace this night. We pray particularly for the people of Israel and Palestine, the people of Ukraine and Russia, the people of Sudan, and many other places that are not in the media at this time. Thank you, Lord God, for the many people who govern our land at state, federal and local level. We pray for this council. Pray for our mayor and councillors and for the work that they do, for our general manager and the staff, and for all who volunteer across our community. As we move towards Christmas, we're most mindful of those who are in need at this time. Pray for those who are a large number in our community who are desperate at this time. We thank you for the work of Anlicare, of Vinnie's, of the Salvos, of Sydney Community Services, and St George's Housing, for all who seek to raise up the poor and care for them. Bless, Lord, too, at this time our local businesses and all who work so hard at this time of year. Pray all this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated. Thank you, Reverend Armstrong. The proceedings of all council meetings in open session, including all debate and addresses by the public, are recorded and webcast live on council's website for the purposes of facilitating community access. Webcast archives are stored and available on the public to the public on council's website. The recordings may be disclosed under the provisions of the Government Information Public Access Act of 2009. Members of the public attending a council meeting may have their image, voice and personal information, including their name and address, recorded, publicly broadcast and archived, or as an observer or other interested party. Members of the public consent to the use of their image, voice and personal information. Councillors, we have a late apology from Deputy Mayor Crasoy. She sends her apologies. Do we have any declarations of interest? There being none, I'll move to item 1, confirmation of minutes of ordinary meeting 4526 held 23rd October 23. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, Councillor Quinn.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and just with due respect to Councillor Sanderson, I just am a little concerned with what we've got on the bottom of page 21, the suggestion about withholding information. Council withholding information. So just reflecting on that, I am concerned that perception has been put out there. I just want to state that, and I think it's been responded to in the response from the General Manager.
Thank you, Councillor. General Manager, do you wish to comment? No. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now move to item 2.1, mayoral minutes, which is 2023 Hunters Hill Christmas card competition. The recommendation is that we received and noted. Again, councillors, I was fortunate enough to judge the 2023 Hunters Hill Christmas card competition. This year it was hosted by Baronia Park Public School, which was a fantastic little event, and I do thank the parents and staff at the school, and particularly the participants. The winner of the 2023 Christmas card competition was Lucilla from Year 3. So we will all soon have access to Christmas cards with Lucilla's artwork on the front. The competition runners-up were Kira from Year 5, Oscar K from Kindergarten, Talia from Year 4, Henry S from Year 6, and Eloise S from year 2. So I will send letters of congratulations to all the winners of the Christmas card competition. Councillors, any discussion? If not, put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried. Move now to item 3.1. A notice of motion of the overpass electronic billboard, moved by Councillor Quinn. In the absence of Councillor Crassoy, we do need a seconder for this motion. Seconded Councillor Prieston. Councillor, we have a number of speakers to this, so I will invite, in order, Dr. Alastair Sharp, the lectern. Thank you, Dr. Sharp. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm speaking tonight for the Hunters Hill Trust. The Trust, as I did back in 14th of November in 2019, and really our objections to this billboard haven't changed. Perhaps there are a lot of other issues that we didn't comment on there, but we were largely concerned about safety. We acknowledge that the billboard's been erected against council's advice, and we fully support the motion of councillors Quinn and Crassoy. Although council's conclusions in the report of council meeting 11th of November 2019 were largely about the impact on heritage, in our letter to the Department of Planning and Environment, we explained our concern about the creation of a road hazard, a traffic hazard. We pointed out that the very design of such displays is intended to take a driver's attention away from the road, and that this distraction is intensified by the display being changed frequently. It is deliberately set up to change during the time that you approach the sign, so that to grab your attention, obviously, but also to take your attention off the road and the other traffic. And that is the very intention of the billboard. The very intention of it is to distract the driver's attention away from the road. Why else would advertisers pay JC Deco to display their messages? Obviously, it's to take your attention. I don't think we'd anticipated that not only does the display distract attention for drivers on Burns Bay Road, but as I noticed just recently, it also takes your attention when you're coming up the ramp from Tarbin Creek Bridge, and potentially when you should be stopping or before turning right or turning left, but especially in the right-hand lane coming up there. So we recommend the council support the proposed motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharp. Councillors, any questions? Sorry, Dr. Sharp, can you just remain? Any questions? Councillor Prieston.
I might just seek clarity from the General Manager on that particular resolution of council in the 2019 meeting, if I'm allowed to. General Manager, for you, Mr. Mayor, are you able to perhaps read out the exact resolution just for the benefit of everyone here tonight in relation to item 3.1? Or just the...
Pretty big.
Yeah, maybe could we have it, do we have an electronic version?
Councillor, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Prieston, anticipating that might be asked, I've got a copy of it here. So just obviously I wasn't here in 2019. So yes, council report in November 11, 2019. The application by RMS was deemed unsatisfactory for the following reasons. This is a council report. 1, the proposed LED advertising signs will have adverse impacts on the character of the conservation area and the setting of the heritage items within the vicinity through the introduction of dynamic commercial advertising during both daytime and nighttime. 2, since the overpass bridge and Burns Bay Road are structures and part of the way associated with the State Heritage Register listed Gladesville Bridge, the impacts on the setting of this item are detrimental. Despite the fact that the signs will not be within the SHR curtilage of the bridge and indicated on the State Heritage Register plan, they will nonetheless be visible intrusive within the setting of the State Heritage listed Gladesville Bridge. 3, by their very nature and intent, the LED signs will intrude into views to and from the Gladesville Bridge when travelling along Burns Bay Road in both southbound and northbound directions, and will have adverse impacts on the setting of the bridge and the associated way. In this regard, quote, the historical and contemporary relationships with the bridge and the views to and from, close quotes, the bridge will suffer adverse impacts. 4, it is considered that the proposal is contrary to Regulation 17.3A of the SEP number 64, advertising and signage, in that the proposal is not acceptable in terms of its impacts not being compatible with the amenity and visual character of the surrounding area, and hence is not permitted in this location. 5, the signs are deemed to be and are considered to be designed to be distractive to motorists using the classified road and may significantly obstruct views of motorists on Burns Bay Road exit ramps and distract their attention away from the road as they approach the overpass. 6, the proposal will effectively remove the non-advertising banners which are currently in high demand for short exposure period opportunity for community groups, including schools and council itself, to promote community-based events. In this opportunity, sorry, my apologies. It is this opportunity was removed, there may be adverse impacts these events due to the reduced promotional exposure. And finally, 7, the illuminated advertising sign that is proposed to be installed on the southern side of the overpass will detrimentally appear in the foreground views of to Hunters Hill, heritage item number 1479, the Hunters Hill Hotel, when viewed from Durham Street, which provides pedestrian access from the nearby Tartan Creek Bridge.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillors, any other questions of Dr. Sharp? Sorry, Dr. Sharp.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a second speaker, Mrs. Melissa Babbage. Thank you, Mrs. Babbage. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm really appreciative of the council to allow me to speak tonight. I think it's not just my voice, obviously, but it's the voice of an enormous number of people in this community who feel really strongly about this issue and about being railroaded, about having views about our LGA basically completely dismissed and by the state government. So following on from all the good work that had already been done by council and by some other voices, if I can put it that way, I did some additional research and I have found, I think, that there are some pretty significant flaws in the signage safety assessment, which was part of the Department of Planning, Industry and Environment Development Application Assessment as dated in May 2021. And that was the recommended assessment that then went to the minister. So if there is a flaw in the signage safety assessment, then the minister has received a flawed recommendation and that should be reopened. Mindful of the time that I've been allotted, what I would just say is that the signage safety assessment as carried out by WSP back in September 2019 focuses on Burns Bay Road and does not properly consider the impacts on the off-ramp heading north. The assessment notes there are no intersections, merge points, pedestrian or cyclist crossing or traffic control devices within the stopping sight distance 103 metres of the proposed sign. This is clearly incorrect when we consider the intersection of the Burns Bay Road off-ramp and Church Street. So that, I'm not even sure that they actually came, but that's probably another issue. So we know that there are some other aspects of the guidelines that have not been complied with include the line of sight. The sign should not be located in such a way that the driver's head is required to turn away from the road and the components of the traffic stream in order to view the display and or the message. So again, we all know that everyone coming up, particularly to turn right, is looking bang on at that sign and will remain with their head turned looking at that sign. It also is proximate to decision-making points and conflict points. Again, we're under the guidelines that the sign should not be located. The placement of the sign should not distract a driver at a critical time. In particular, signs should not obstruct a driver's view of an intersection, to a prescribed traffic control device such as traffic signals, or to pedestrian crossings. So there seems to be, again, ample reasons to suggest that there may be flaws in that assessment. There are other criteria regarding dwell and transition times.
Sorry, moved extension of time.
Oh,
Councillor
okay.
Quinn, seconded councillor Priest, and all those in favour, against, carried. Please continue.
Thank you. Clearly I don't even have a watch on. So there's obviously issues with dwell times and transition times where the advertisements are changing every 10 seconds and the lights are red for at least 60, probably more. So ongoing distraction there. The other thing I would note is that there has been no reference in the WSP report to any reference at all to that intersection. They in that report only talks about Burns Bay Road. It does not talk about the intersection. So I had put together a document which I had circulated to the general manager. I've circulated that to all the councillors. I have sent that letter to the Honourable Paul Scully, so the Minister for Planning and Public Spaces. I'd circulated to Anthony Roberts, who I believe has also passed it on now to the Department of Transport. I am awaiting some feedback on that. One final matter that I'd like to table tonight that I have not shared with any of the above as yet is the actual signed development consent. So not the assessment, but the consent has particular stipulations in Part E. And those stipulations are that the approved advertising structure must not have or use, amongst other things, electronically changeable messages, complex displays that hold a driver's attention beyond glance appreciation, and a method of illumination that distracts or dazzles. So they are clearly the content displayed on the digital billboard as it relates to the off-ramp at its intersection with Church Street clearly has and uses prohibited items and content from the actual signed development consent. So I will table that if I might.
Yes.
And I will leave it there.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbage. Councillors, any questions? Mrs. Babbage, councillor Sanderson.
Thank you again for your the excellent submission you've made. Would you like to see some of the points out of that go into our motion in order to reinforce what you've already done and council support your submission?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I did not have a long look at the motion today. I was in a different broadcast channel, as I call it. But but I'm comfortable that the councillors would be able to capture those important points. Probably the last one would be the fact that I had not previously tabled for you the issue with the signed development consent itself. So that might be something that you would wish to include.
Councillors, any other questions? Your follow-up, councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, just to confirm, if you were to table the document, you'd be happy to, for us to deal with that as
Definitely
another point in the motion.
Yep, I can table that.
Councillor, councillor Vergara.
Question through you, Mr. Mayor. So we're all here. We're all oppose it. We're going to do some letter writing, but kind of so what? The application, the DA conditions of consent. So perhaps to the director, who has standing to make an application to a court, for example, to enforce the DA conditions, which might then actually mean that it's not an economically viable proposition and it comes down.
Director.
Through you, Mayor, to enforce conditions, anybody can lodge a complaint to the Transport New South Wales or the certifier that certified the project. We can go to both of them. A resident can, a council may as well, on ensuring that the conditions are adhered to, or the structure is not complying with the conditions imposed.
Do we know if there was a certification done of the project, or whether it was signed off by the Department of Roads direct?
Through you, I'm very sure there wasn't certified, that certified the structure and the whole program.
Yep, okay. Councillor Quinn.
Yes, so just a question, if I may, could you inform councillors as well about some of the other activities that you're aware of at the moment objecting to this?
Yes, of course. First of all, there has been a petition which was started by Councillor Prieston. That's a paper petition and a digital petition via a website called www.nobillboardhh.com. And so my understanding is that that petition is also going to be tabled tonight, just to demonstrate that this is something that the community really does care about. So I have some paper versions. The other activities are what is attempting to be a letter writing campaign, initially started through the TWT, again through that website, where if people go, they can just click on and go straight to the TWT website and write a letter. There's another aspect of the campaign which will be to actually write to JC Decaux and elaborate for them the storied history of Hunters Hill, whereby two French brothers, the Jouberts, amongst others, founded this suburb, essentially. I mean, I'm embellishing history, I guess, but it's a good story. And then we have another, and then generations later, we have another storied French family, the Decaux family, who, two brothers, CEO and executive chairman of the company, who have come and done this to our beautiful environment. So there's going to be that kind of campaign as well. There was going to be, again, a letter writing reach out campaign to the advertisers, but there's a lot of advertisers now, so that probably won't be very effective. But so that might get just parked sideways for a moment. And then there's a petition to via the state government through the House to the Minister for Transport or Planning? Planning, which is waiting to be activated, so that again people can go on and express their dislike of the billboard. And yeah, so there's lots of ways lots of aspects, let's just call it that, to this kind of campaign. So it's a bit more beyond kind of writing a letter, so what? It is actually about multiple approaches to trying to bring influence to getting it removed.
So what I meant is that that kind of relies on goodwill. So my question would be, would you support more?
Well, it doesn't, because if you write to a minister, with all due respect, or you write to a department, they need to respond.
So when I say what else was the letter that isn't proposed in the motion, which is just, we oppose it. So I'm not being disrespectful. What I'm trying to say is, if there is an avenue for a more formal approach, like if council could take legal action to would you support that type?
Yes, definitely.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes. And I think it's been really to be working, everyone acknowledges that this is not per se in the remit of the council, but the council has knowledge and resources and reach that are hugely important and additive to the community in trying to get this affected. So that's so I would be supportive of that kind of activity as well. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Councillors, any other questions of Ms. Babbage? If not, thank you. Thank you for your address. Councillors, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to your motion?
Mr. Mayor, thanks very much. In moving the motion, can I also just seek some amendment to the header of the motion? So in the business paper, it notes the strategic outcome being related to active living, health and well-being and so on, and the action and so on. Could I just request through you, Mr. Mayor, to the General Manager and the executive staff, if an appropriate alternative header could be used, because this correspondence will end up going through to the Minister as well and to other sources. I think it's more relevant that it be reflected, for example, with the same strategic outcome that we see in item 4.1, for example, probably a different action. But from your drop downs, if we could ask that the appropriate
Remove billboard.
well, whatever it is, but I know that those actual words come out of our strategic documents. So to choose a more appropriate, more appropriately aligned strategic outcome and action from our strategic documents that reflect what's in the motion is what I'm saying.
Councillor Quinn, are you suggesting?
Well, that doesn't need to be part of the motion. I think
No?
that can be
Okay.
taken on notice.
That's fine.
Because
That's fine.
this report will form a formal
Yes,
submission
yeah.
ultimately if the actions
Yes.
are endorsed by council.
Yes.
So with that, I'll move it.
Yes.
We'll wait.
Can I foreshadow an amendment to the
Maybe you
motion?
can propose an amendment,
Or I can
and
propose an
if the mover is comfortable, then it can become a motion without having
Right.
to propose anything.
If we could have that up on screen, I have a couple of ideas about how we can just refine it a little bit in light of the speaker's comments tonight.
Sorry, could we just pull up the motion on the floor?
So I think firstly at point 3, I would propose where it says that council writes to the relevant New South Wales government agency, I would propose changing that to a plural agencies, because it's kind of likely that we would end up having to write to transport and planning at the very least. I would also put a comma, and I would include the certifier of the project or the installation, perhaps.
The certifier.
Maybe say the certifier of the installation.
Of the of the project, perhaps.
Or of the project,
If it assists.
Comma. Richard, would there be any other?
Well, I'm aware that Councillor Sanderson has circulated to councillors some alternative additional wordings as well, which I'm happy to incorporate. And I'd also want to include that final point that Ms. Babbage.
I'm trying to keep it as broad as possible so as to capture any possible avenue that we might have to go down. So let's just say how it goes, and then if anyone has inputs, please let me know. And then I would take us up to 1 sub paragraph A and insert a new sub paragraph A, which says
a new part A that becomes A becomes B.
Yeah. To say non-compliance with capital T transport, capital C corridor, capital O outdoor, capital A advertising, lowercase and, capital S signage, capital G guidelines. Under chapter 3 of the state, capital S, capital E environmental, capital P planning policy, all capitals, brackets industry and employment, close bracket 2021. And then a new paragraph B, so the former paragraph A becomes paragraph C. To say disregard and non-compliance with the conditions of the development consent for the project. To my mind, this kind of drafting would go to capturing multiple potential non-compliances and to give us the opportunity to advocate to multiple bodies.
Are you finished with your amendments?
I'm finished,
Okay.
yes, so.
Councillor Quinn, are you
Yes,
comfortable?
I'm happy with that, Mr Mayor. Can I just question in B, development consent, are we referring there to the part E that Ms Babbage referred to, or you
Yeah.
want me to keep it general, the whole development consent?
I mean, I'm happy to keep it general.
Yep.
I mean, this isn't to say that we can't then be prescriptive in the letter, I think.
That's fair enough.
Councillors, just in the drafting of the letter, given that Mrs Babbage has tabled her submission, I'm happy to incorporate those components into the letter that we ultimately sent to the minister and the departments and to now the certifier. Councillors, that is the motion on the floor. Councillor Sanderson, would you?
You've accepted all of that? Yes, I
propose
circulated
more
earlier this
additional
afternoon.
amendments?
Yes, part 4, which I think has been available electronically, so they can go up. Having listened to Councillor Priest, and I think I'll insert one word in mine just to keep it broader, but otherwise I'll stick with what I've got. Can you get that up? Or should I start reading it?
If we'll get it up, but if you want to read your proposed inclusions, and I will see if the mover and seconder of the motion is comfortable.
Right.
If not, we'll have to debate it.
Okay, 4, that the above communications, A, attach the report and recommendation was unanimously adopted by Council at its ordinary meeting held on 11 November 2019 at item 4.2. B, further note the non-compliance of the new electronic advertising billboard. Here I want to insert another word if we could, and that would be comma, including with the following relevant provisions, just to make sure that it's not regarded as being, or it's open-ended. There can be plenty of other provisions. I'm sure.
Sorry, Councillor Sanderson, can I just confirm? In part B, are you making any amendment to what you sent through earlier?
Yes, just in the insertion of one word,
Being?
and that at the end of that first line. No. First line, not that second line.
After the word billboard?
Billboard, just put comma including.
Including with relevant, with the following relevant provisions.
Yep.
Yes?
Okay. Just so it's, the list can be broader than what we've shown. Those provisions are 1, transport corridor outdoor advertising signage guidelines, which I'll refer to as guidelines hereafter. 1.3.1, in that the display of advertising other than on business or building identification signs is prohibited in heritage conservation areas under SEP 64 clause 10 1. Then in parentheses after that, now State Environmental Planning Policy, Industry and Employment 2021, clause 3.8.1. 2, guideline table 1, land use compatibility criteria, transport corridor advertising 2, in that the advertising signage is placed on the land where the signage is visible from a heritage area and significant impacts on the amenity of that area. 3, guideline table 1, land use compatibility criteria, transport corridor advertising 4, in that the advertising structure is located so as to diminish the heritage values of items or areas of local or state heritage significance. Then here we're getting into the ones that Ms Babbage has helped us with so much. 4, that guideline table 2, design assessment criteria, schedule 1 SEP 64, now State Environmental Planning Policy, Industry Employment 2021, schedule 5, in that the new electronic advertising billboard does not meet assessment criteria in terms of compatibility with character of the area, impact on the amenity of visual quality of the heritage conservation area, views and vistas, streetscape, setting and landscape, light spillage and safety sorry, now we get into the ones that Ms. Babbage has helped me. I didn't realise I've been so long-winded. Guideline 3.2.2D. In the drivers on the northbound Burns Bay Road exit ramp can have their attention distracted away from the road environment, having to turn their heads away from the road and the components of this traffic streams in order to view the display. 6, guideline 3.2.3A, in that the advertising signage is located less than a safe sight distance from the intersection traffic control signals and foot crossing at the intersection of the northbound Burns Bay Road exit ramp with Church Street. 7, guideline 3.2.3B, in that the advertising signage will distract drivers on the northbound Burns Bay exit ramp at the critical time by obstructing views to the intersection, and in particular to vehicles, active transport and pedestrians moving west on the overpass bridge. And at last, the last one, point 8, guideline 3.3.1A, in that the advertising signage can distract drivers on the northbound Burns Bay Road exit ramp from traffic signals or obstruct information about the road alignment.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Quinn and Prieston, are you comfortable with that being included in the recommendation?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Prieston.
I think it's particularly clunky and limits us potentially to this, which is why.
Councillor, I'm going to have to ask whether or not you are comfortable with them being included. They are essentially just listing the guidelines that we that will form part of the letter, and the motion will be annexed to the letter.
Yeah, it's just like not the best drafting, but sure, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, we now have a motion on the floor, substantially amended. Councillor Quinn, would you like to speak to the motion?
I sure would, Mr. Mayor. I want to know how the hell this thing got approved in the first place. So therefore, what was the process, given that it came to this council back in 2019, where there was unanimous support from all the councillors in the room at that time, saying no, this is a blight on our environment. What happened then? How did it go from there through to the state government to planning, and somebody has signed it off? And someone has also signed a contract with JC&Co to put that hideous screen up there on the overpass. That's what I want to know. So that's why I'm very strongly pushing for this to go ahead tonight. I also want to know what process was gone through, not only with the billboard, but also the fencing that's gone up with it. So clearly now we've got fencing that's gone up, probably triggered to make it safe so no one gets electrocuted or can tamper with the new billboard. What process was gone through there also? Because there was an integrity to the design of the overpass, Carbon Creek Bridge, Gladesville Bridge, the on-ramps. There was an integrity in the design of all of that that goes back to those original construction times. And that's been absolutely butchered by what's gone up there recently, both with the sign and with that hideous fence that's gone up. So I'm very keen to get some answers to those questions. They're totally contrary. What's gone up there is totally contrary, as we're hearing tonight, all of our local development standards and our local values. And I want to get an understanding in terms of the response we get as to why that was ignored. I just don't get it, frankly, how it got to this point. The fence and that billboard I regard as hideous eyesores that strongly diminish the general aesthetic of what I would call our address, the arrival point into Hunters Hill. And to see that there is just, no one would do such a hideous thing to the front of their home, for example, or any other, property. But for a government agency to think that that's okay I just don't get it. That's the sort of thing that I would like answers to. I'll have more to say, Mr. Mayor, in my final response.
Thank you, councillor Quinn. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion, councillor Prieston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, I would like permission to table a petition that I started in my capacity as a constituent of 2110. And additionally, I would like permission to table a letter to Minister Scully from a constituent, namely Mrs. Babbage, who's just spoken.
Happy to table them.
And if they could please be attached to the minutes of this meeting.
Yes.
That would be great. Just to touch on the petition, it was done via an online free petition. I circulated that to just a few locals, to be frank, on the 8th of November. Obviously, to echo Councillor Quinn's remarks at the pure, disgust of what was put up without our consent, without our approval, without any consultation whatsoever from the State Department. And it kind of exploded very quickly. We have 493 signatures, including the wedding signatures collected in the petition that I just tabled, which shows that in a very short amount of time, this has affected a lot of local members of our community. I think that I would implore council to write passionately to the relevant departments, agencies, certifiers, anyone else that we deem to be the correct authority on this, to find out exactly what Councillor Quinn just asked, what process was undertaken, what approvals and how they were given, and what our avenue is to have any decisions that have been made effectively unpicked at this point. I don't have much else to say. Councillor Quinn summarised it very well, and I think just to hear the speakers tonight come out here on a Monday evening to talk to council about how passionately against this project that they are, I think is a testament to how hard or how involved our community members are and how they ought to be listened to, and we're here to advocate for them as well as us. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Prieston. Any speakers against the motion? For the motion, councillor Sanderson.
I won't speak for the motion at this point in time, but if I could, through you, Mr. Mayor, we were advised by the General Manager a while ago that I think council was given about 3 days' notice of the screens going up. Did we get any notice about the signage going up?
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not to my knowledge, no.
Councillor Quinn,
A question, if I may, to the director. Given is that stretch of Burns Bay Road, given that it's conservation area both sides, is that section of Burns Bay Road excised from the conservation area because it's a state asset or not?
For you, man, no, it's in the conservation area under ALEP.
councillors, any speakers against the motion? For the motion, councillor Vergara.
I would only like to say that we can write passionately, we can write a letter, support all that. But if it comes to the crunch, then I'd like the council to support the community and put some money behind this. If we have to take action to review the decision administratively or enforce DA conditions, then that will come back to council for decision. And I would urge councillors at that time to remember the passion they have now and support that action so it doesn't fall on any particular community member to take that type of action.
Thank you, councillor. Any speakers against the motion? I feel like there's not going to be any. For the motion, councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I think the community and those in the community have gone to a lot of trouble to voice their and express their concerns in relation to this matter. It is really distressing to find that the minister and the government agencies have moved forward with something. Clearly, council had a view and still does hold a view, from what I can gather, that these signage and the fence, which is again something that does impose and does create significant conflict with what Councillor Quinn said, our values and our heritage in the area. I'm most concerned about the lack of adherence to the guidelines and to all the provisions that have been discussed from the gallery and also from Councillor Sanderson. He's very thorough compilation of issues. It is amazing that the process has overridden everything, and a minister would sign off on this process and commit to these two elements being thrust upon us. I think it's important to clarify that the heritage from a conservation area point of view, it is only the northern side of that corridor of the bridge that is in the conservation area. The southern side isn't. And I do raise the issue that in a subsequent issue on the paper that we're proposing to remove the conservation area from the northern part. And to me, that would leave us open to, again, yet another another sign on the northern side. I think it's important that we realise that that bridge in total is in the conservation area, despite the fact that from the south of that, it's not. And that item is appended to the bridge. And therefore, I would suggest that it is, and as is indicated in this resolution, non-compliant and doesn't meet the legal requirements. So there are a large number of reasons why it doesn't. And I think that council should be, as Councillor Vidara has said, be a strong advocate for making sure that the community's views, its efforts and its knowledge are put forcefully to the appropriate authorities. Having said that, I'd probably like to move an amendment to the motion and it become part 5.
Sorry, Councillor Williams, can we just pull up the motion so that we can be very clear about what's being amended or proposed? Part 5.
And this has been said that I think we probably need to do it now rather than wait and then come back at a later stage. The council seek legal advice as to what course of action can be taken to deem the legal basis on the issues listed in the motion and the DA provisions are enforced.
Thank you, Councillor. A question, would you be comfortable changing legal advice to planning advice at this stage? Because I think that we need, my own perspective is that we'd need to seek to see whether the planning, whether the consents are have not been, or if there's a problem with the current built form in terms of the consent that was granted by the minister, then I think the first step would be getting that planning advice and then backing it up with probably a legal letter.
I'd be happy to include planning and legal advice because I think we
Yeah.
can see from the motion before us that there's a whole range of potential, if not real, non-compliance. And as a result of that, it's the next step is if you're going to advocate on the community's behalf, then the force of legal advice would be very useful.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. The mover and second are comfortable with that being included in the motion? Yes, that becomes part 5 of the motion. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other speakers against them? Any speakers against the motion? No. For the motion, Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, I guess it's my turn to speak and strongly for the motion. It's sad that this business has ended up with effectively a covert operation with no notice to council about it. And it's quite interesting. The legislation goes out of its way to exclude councils. If I could go back to the question that was asked of the director, in one of the things I did notice in my research for looking at this, our LEP provisions are actually effectively removed from the transport corridor by a set which has precedence over our LEP. which is very sad. I mean, and that's why we have to deal with it. That's why I've drafted the provisions that have gone into the motion in such a way that we're referring to the SEP rather than our own LEP. But if you were to refer to in the old SEP 64, there's a provision there, 16 transport corridor land, and it says 1, despite clause 10.1 and the provisions any other environmental planning instrument. So that means our LEP, the display of an advertising advertisement on a transport corridor is permissible with developed consent in the following cases. And the cases of the list would include a sign such as this one. That provision is now 3.14 of the new industry and employment SEP. So it's just so sad that we're not given a chance. We weren't. Our community didn't have the opportunity to be properly consulted about this. Council had to deal with it in a hurried way. I think our former senior planner Kerry Smith did a great job in getting together what he did in the time it's available. We did respond. We responded carefully. If anything was missing, it was just the really fine detail of a provision that wouldn't often be applied in Huntersville, because the SEP would in fact exclude most advertising, with the exception of building identification and signage, from our conservation areas. So I think council did exceptionally well then, and I think this motion tonight backs that up and furthers the claim. It's just sad that we now have the item to deal with, and it's a matter of removing it rather than just stopping it. But I think we've worked very closely together tonight, and we've got an excellent motion, so I strongly endorse it.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Given that all councillors have spoken, I will just say before Councillor Quinn has his right of reply that I too have quite a few questions about this. The fact that the State Department and Minister, but particularly the State Department, have installed these first the fencing and then the billboards without seemingly any consultation with either this council or with the community more broadly. There are serious questions about that very important piece of infrastructure that once skewed the east and west of the peninsula. The billboard went up seemingly overnight. It was preceded by the installation of fencing that is utterly inconsistent with, as Councillor Quinn put it, the state significant heritage item that is the Gladesville and Tarpon Creek bridges. It was done without consultation of this community. It was done without consultation to the council, and it is a critical piece of infrastructure for everyone that lives here. It is distracting. It is too bright, and I can say that if there is a problem with the conditions of consent not being adhered to, that this council should be pursuing that either through planning or through its legal avenues. So very supportive of the motion that's been put forward by Councillor Quinn and Councillor Crassoy, but now Councillor Prieston. Reverend Armstrong pointed out to me before the meeting started that the billboard is actually in the place of a once consecrated church prior to the installation of the overpass. It's astounding to me that the state government would install such a overt piece of financial infrastructure for them with no benefit to the community whatsoever. The overpass is consistently overrun with maintenance problems. That's been getting slowly better recently, but there's a lot of take and not a lot of give, in my view. So that being said, I will pass to Councillor Quinn for closing remarks. Councillor Prieston, have you got a question?
May I be indulged just to add one more thing to the record in terms of discussion?
Very quick.
It's very quick.
Can you phrase it as a question?
Maybe to the Director of Planning for you, Mr. Mayor. I also, in my capacity as a constituent, attempted to apply for, as alluded to by Ms. Babbage in her remarks, apply for a petition through the New South Wales Legislative Assembly. And when you do that, you have to nominate a minister that you would like the petition to go to. This is before the petition's even launched for signatures. And I applied and I wrote a very long spiel and description as to how I would like the petition to look and as to why the community would need the petition to be upheld by the Minister's Office. And it was directed at Minister Scully, and the Minister's Office rejected it and directed me to instead apply for a petition to be made to our local state member, being the Honourable Anthony Roberts, member for Lane Cove. Question. I mean, that if that's not indicative of the Minister's Office being potentially not willing to communicate with the council on this matter, I just wondered maybe what your views would be on perhaps, bringing light to that correspondence that I've had with the Minister's Office on this already in our submission to the Department of Planning, if this motion's passed, obviously.
Through you, Mayor, I'll try.
Like, I just don't want them to come back and say, well, we've already indicated that you've got to, seek advocacy through your local member.
I can answer that question if you need to. The local member is sitting on the opposition benches and has absolutely nothing to do with consent nor the installation of something that is a piece of roads infrastructure.
That wasn't my question. I know that, and I responded to the Minister's Office on that basis. I said we are not seeking local advocacy from our local member. We are seeking to
remove the billboard.
Remove the billboard on XYZ grounds, i.e. of non-compliance. I just thought that perhaps my only remark was to say that perhaps we could mention that in the correspondence that goes out if this motion's passed, to say that we've already tried and have not received any feedback, any consultation, nothing.
Happy to.
Yeah.
My only
Councillor Quinn.
concern with that, Mr. Mayor, is did you do that as councillor priest?
No.
No. So what we're doing tonight is a council submission. So I'd probably see that as sitting outside what we're hopefully going to support tonight. Yeah.
Councillor Quinn, right of
Well,
reply.
look, very, very quickly, Mr. Mayor, I think everyone's said it all, and I'll say it again. I want to know how this happened and who signed it off, and what were the reasons for ignoring all of the things that have been pointed out, both in terms of compliances, community feedback, all of the things that have been mentioned tonight. It bamboozles me totally, right, to understand how that would happen. I'd also note that it appears to me that it was approved by the previous state government as well, not by the current state government or a minister in the previous state government. So there might be a little bit of argy-bargy over that as well. And that's why I think it's so important that we continue to push forward in a united fashion, irrespective of those political allegiances. It's got to be very much about this issue, the details about this issue, if we're going to succeed in what we're trying to do.
I have a feeling that this is going to be unanimous. Councillors, I hope the answer is no. Does anyone want me to read out the motion? Does everyone know what they're voting on? Yes. I'll put that to the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. I now move on to item 4.2, report on the status of the LEP and DCP review. We have a number of speakers. Oh, sorry. 4.1, Basil Master Plan. Gotten ahead of myself.
You want to bring those items forward?
I'm in your hands, councillors. Would you like to? Moved, Councillor Williams, that we move item 4.2 forward. Seconded, Councillor Sanderson. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.2, the LEP DCP review. We have a number of speakers to this item, and the first speaker we have is Mr. Robert Hayes. Welcome, Mr. Hayes. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Bob Hayes. I'm a Hunters Hill resident and a member of the Montefiore Redevelopment Community Action Association. Tonight, Council will make a decision whether to send or not to send the Hunters Hill amended LEP scoping proposal for gateway determination. The Council report by Mr Metcalfe recommends that Council does refer the amended LEP scoping proposal to DPE review and potential gateway determination. However, I'm not sure it is ready. The amended LEP scoping proposal has taken into account a substantial amount of the community feedback on the original version. That is commendable. But some things are not quite ready yet. We must remember that the changes to the LEP are not just refinements. They are, in many cases, significant changes. Therefore, it's important to get it right. Some examples. Firstly, there are many references to character in the amended LEP, but the original LEP, 2012, spoke frequently of character, identity, and amenity, how we live and enjoy in our suburb. I believe that identity and amenity should also be highlighted in the aims of the amended LEP. On page 65, the aims of the proposal, I note that one of the original aims, aim P for Peter, is missing. This aim was to promote high standards of urban architecture and design quality. And I would think that it's an error that it's been left off, because to me that's a no-brainer. On page 67, Zone R2 low density residential, namely the objectives of the zone. There's a dot point which says to minimise the adverse effects of bulk and scale of new development. But this wording still allows inappropriate bulk and scale and seeks only to minimise its effects. It's not actually prohibiting inappropriate bulk and scale. I feel that a better statement would be to say something like, to ensure that the bulk and scale of new development is consistent with the low-rise character and integrity of existing local neighbourhoods. Page 67, dot point 7, states to provide for housing that is compatible with the desired future character of the area in terms of bulk, height and scale. The words desired future character are still there, even though I believe the intention was to remove them, and in quite a few spots they were removed. Those
Sorry,
words are
Mr.
also...
Hayes, could I just ask you, moves extension of time, Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Please continue.
Thank you. Those words are also in the rationale. One of the biggest concerns to me is in the first half of page 17 of the proposal, that is page 79 of the agenda papers, namely section 6.9, landscapes area for dwelling houses and secondary dwellings. Clauses 2, 3, 4 and 5 on page 17 taken together are unclear, ambiguous, confusing and likely to result in significant loss of landscaped areas in developments when compared with the present. The main issue here is that clause 5 states a definition which says landscaped areas means a part of the site for growing plants, grasses and trees, but does not include any part of the site occupied by any building structure, swimming pool, hard paved area or artificial turf. So if a parcel of land has a large pool, this appears to be excluded from the site, and the landscaped area is then therefore 40% of an area smaller than it should be. So there are things like that. I believe that whole landscaped area section needs to be rewritten. It's unclear, and I believe that there could be very serious implications will come from its current wording. In addition, I don't see any measures to strengthen our Hunters Hill's resistance to unwanted impacts of employment zone amendments, unlike some other councils such as Mossman. And also there are no appropriate, well, I can't find any appropriate sustainability measures to better respond to climate change. Finally, a point was raised by a community member, not me, in community feedback, and I'll just quote that. He said, the Hunters Hill LEP will alter the statutory and planning context for projects, including the Montefiore redevelopment. Mr. Metcalfe's response was, and I quote, the proposal does not relate, that is the planning proposal, LEP proposal, does not relate to any specific development proposal, including any development proposal associated with the Montefiore site. While that is true, once in place, any change in the LEP does have direct implications for any and all specific proposals going forward, including Montefiore. So this stuff counts. It really counts. As soon as the LEP is enacted.
Sorry, Mr. Hayes moved extension of time. Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Sanderson. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Please continue.
As soon as the LEP is enacted, this makes significant impacts on Hunters Hill. In conclusion, I believe the revised scoping proposal is not yet ready to go to the DPR for review. I believe any deficiencies outlined tonight should be promptly examined and, if required, rectified so the document is truly ready to go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Councillors, any questions of Mr. Hayes? Councillor Vergara.
Hayes, you've misread page 79, clause 5. The site area is the denominator, that's the 100%, and what can go to make up the 40% doesn't include swimming pools. So excluding swimming pools does not mean it's 40% of a smaller area.
Right.
You just, with respect, you're just not right on that interpretation.
Okay,
sorry, councillors, any other questions of Mr. Hayes? Take that one as a statement. Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you.
We now have Miss Heather Armstrong. Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong.
Thank you very much.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity once again to speak to you. I reiterate some of the concerns of Mr. Hayes from the Montefiore Resident Action Group. I don't think it's ready to go yet to the department, this particular proposal. I commend Mr. Metcalfe and those involved from the staff for the changes they have made, which are a significant improvement. However, the teeth provided by the DCP, which are not enforceable, as we all know, they're just a nice wish list of lovely things that we all value and aspire to maintain in our municipality, are not, excuse me, given adequate coverage in these new provisions that have been added into the proposed scoping proposal. In particular, the C4 environmental living zone is not being considered at this stage. Now, I wonder why, because once again, the R2 proposals concern themselves basically with garden suburb. Now, we don't just live in a garden suburb, we live in the bush. I live in the bush. I work in the bush all the time. This is a terribly important aspect of many of this municipality for many of us. We live here because we love the bush. Yet R2, once again, the low density residential aims objectives continually reinforce garden suburb. Can we not please acknowledge the fact that this is more than just a garden suburb? Those sort of things worry me because it's not enough to actually ensure the foundation of the breadth, foundational protection of the breadth of our environmental assets here. Now, C4 environmental living zone, it seems to me, could add that level of protection. It is a looser zone in relation to its scope. It can definitely apply to many aspects of our riverfront areas. And as you know, riverfront is much of that area around where I live, Barron's Crescent, and around the foreshore coming right around. But those protections are in the DCP. Are not enforceable. The scope and proposal amendments don't quite go far enough to add in those DCP protections. And that concerns me. Whereas if we had a C4 environmental living zone, that would fill a lot of that gap. And I just wonder why, given that Mr. Davies did his report in June 2021, report into Hunters Hill character study recommendations, why we haven't had enough time to consider this important new zoning. Why did we just write it off and not bother and just leave it alone? Because it can deal with sensitive bushland and adjacent areas of our municipality. So I wonder why Mr. Davies was not asked to address that issue. Or maybe he was and just didn't bother. I'm not sure. Those are the concerns that I fundamentally have. I do want to see more of the DCP proposals included, in particular in relation to excavation and destruction of the topography.
Sorry, extension of time moved to Councillor Sanderson, seconded Councillor Priest, and all those in favour. Against, that is carried. Please continue, Ms.
Thank you. Thank you. Once again, the proposed changes to the scoping proposal don't really quite go far enough. They talk about preservation of rocky outcrops. That's not quite enough. What I live on is a great big sandstone sheet coming right down to the river. And there's been so much destruction of that whole topography coming down. Number 8 dug right into it and put another single dwelling down there closest possible to the river zone. Number 4B is currently engaging with destruction of the sandstone below it, destroying the bush on top and chucking it down below to the resident who lives at the end of that Paynes Road dead end, which is right below that 4B Barron's Crescent site. So this destruction of this beautiful rock shelf for the purpose of including another whole dwelling, and it's the purpose of it, is not appropriate in this beautiful natural asset that we have here coming down the river. I note that Mossman LEP and many of those proposals, many of those additions in Mossman LEPs have been adopted by Mr. Metcalfe, and that's a good thing. Mossman LEP does talk about the preservation of the landscape and the topography with greater detail than we have done in these proposed amendments. So can that please be looked at before this goes to the department? Because this is a very important aspect of this beautiful line of residences along Barron's Crescent, which are being destroyed. They can't be complying development because it's riverfront, but they're still being destroyed by little bits and pieces, whittling away, putting in a dual occupancy at the top, a huge one at the bottom, and then excavating out that lovely rock shelf coming down for the purpose of adding that extra dwelling below. So this is an important part of our beautiful heritage here. I'd like to see it protected more. In relation to Zone E4 environmental living, can I please table this very nice picture from Mossman Council, which talks about where in Greater Sydney land is zoned E4 environmental living, Willoughby, Lane Cove and North Sydney. Can I please table that document so that it can be just passed around and consulted, because it is being used.
I'm happy to take that.
The point is it is being used by other councils to good effect to protect their beautiful assets and their foreshore assets. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions of Mrs. Armstrong? Sorry, Councillor Sanderson.
Mr. Armstrong, as a member of the Bush Care Management Advisory Committee, you'll be very aware of Council Biodiversity Conservation Strategy, and there they talk a lot about it being a bush suburb as well as a council suburb. And I know in one place that terminology, in fact, a couple of places, I think that terminology is picked up. I take it you're saying that you would like to have that more throughout the entire document.
Yes, of course. Now that sort of lack of fit between these strategies, what actually is the content, the detailed wording of the proposed LEP is something that needs to be addressed. So we need to be certain that we are in fact fulfilling the objectives, which are so carefully worked out after community consultation and so forth, that we actually put those into the LEP rather than just have them as nice vague aims that live somewhere in some policy document.
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Priest.
Perhaps Dr. Armstrong doesn't need to.
Ms. Armstrong,
Ms.
sorry.
Armstrong, sorry.
I haven't got a PhD, sorry.
Maybe if there's no other questions, I just have a question to the Director of Planning through you.
Any other questions, councillors? If not, thank you, Mrs. Armstrong. Councillor Priest.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Armstrong. I just want to seek clarification on this environmental living zone. Obviously, the report to council tonight says that our proposal to introduce an environmental zone would generally be supported by detailed studies and subsequent consultation. Given this has not occurred and does not form part of the current LEP review scope, such a change may not be appropriate as part of the current review, but could be considered for a future review subject to further investigation. So what could we do at this point to potentially incorporate? Can't we, what's the scope got to do with this environmental living?
Councillor, just so that I'll throw to the director. This is deemed a simple review of the LEPDCP. There is a complex review which would entertain things like that. This review is
at the next community consultation.
This could not as part of this process, but as part of a complex review which may be considered in the future. But I'll pass to the director.
Through you, Mayor, thank you, and you're correct in saying that. And the reason for the report is highlights the type of reports, studies that are needed to further assist in formulating those important controls. To add to your comment, is on page 60, the scoping proposal is not a planning proposal and does not enact a change to the LEP. It's only a brief report to assist at the pre-allotment stage. So the commentary that we heard tonight, they're all great comments, they're all important comments, and they will be discussed further down the track once we have a planning proposal in front of us, and the community will be invited and provide formal submissions for us to make commentary on those issues and the issue you're raising tonight. So I just want to add to that. We're not shoving it across, we're looking at it. And to add about this Mossman Scenic Protection Area planning proposal, we've already got a scenic protection area on our maps. So we believe that we need to fine tune our controls, and we need to tell the department as a scoping proposal what we're planning on doing. Take the point about the landscape area. We looked at it in detail following numerous court matters with regard to how to make it simplified and workable for people, and all those other issues on heritage. So the detail studies that are needed to assist us and assist the community with regards to the environmental issues are all here to be done. It's the starting point. Thank you.
So, sorry, just off the back of that, thank you. You're comfortable that the scoping proposal as it stands would still leave scope for us to consider the inclusion of environmental living zone at a later stage in this process?
And then some. Yes, I agree.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillors, we have one more speaker, Miss Karen Raisin. Thank you, Ms. Raisin. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And I don't even think I'll need 3 minutes tonight. Karen Raisin, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Hunters Hill Trust. Look, we do acknowledge that our further suggestions have been embraced by council and included in this review. However, others still remain excluded, and we do seek further explanation as to why this might be. There's been 23 feedback letters and emails, and one of the key themes included concern that existing building height, floor space ratios, landscape area, bulk scale and proportion should be at least maintained, if not strengthened. It would appear, and I think perception is very important, landscape figures, clause 6.9, have been reduced from the existing LEP rather than strengthened. Now, the rationale for this, we suspect, is that these new figures produce the same calculations or results as previously used, given that pools and other hard surfaces have now been removed and are quite separate. However, this report also states on several occasions throughout, and Councillor Prieston, you just read it out, a proposal to introduce changes to principal planning provisions such as building height, floor space ratio, would generally be supported by detailed studies and subsequent consultation. So, if that is the case, why have percentages for landscape areas been changed? Where are the detailed studies on this to do so? We again highlight a reduction rather than a strengthening in heritage conservation areas. Earlier, we had a discussion around electronic billboard at the overpass, and the Trust has wondered if this is why in the recent scoping review, the Burns Bay Road interchange that has always sat within a heritage conservation area is now being lifted. And I know previously other speakers have sort of mentioned this, and the answer I'm not sure about. I'd really like and appreciate a further explanation as to why this is a part of the LEP. Further, if the Paul Davies report is directing council's action on heritage conservation areas, why is there no inclusion on the recommendation by Paul Davies' report on the new conservation area depicted in yellow on the map in his report bounded by Pittwater Road? We do understand that a scoping proposal is not a planning proposal and does not enact change to the LEP as stated. Yet these questions about landscape percentage changes, the reduction in heritage conservation areas that it has been made, they really do continue to bother us.
Sorry, councillors, extension of time, councillor Sanderson, seconded councillor Williams. All those in favour? Against? That is carried.
Well, thank you, and thank you, because that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Ms. Ray.
Thank you.
Councillors, any questions? Councillor Sanderson.
Quite interestingly, your predecessor, Dr. Sharp, quite often used to steal a lot of my thunder when speaking at meetings. So I was very interested to hear you raise the points you raise. I presume that what the Trust would be advocating would be that with the removal of the hard landscaping from the landscaping definition, and that to bring it in line with the standard instrument, you'd be expecting a slight firming of the landscaped areas by continuing the current provisions of 60% for waterfront and 50% elsewhere?
Well, yes, we would, and I think that I agree with one of the other speakers, Mr. Hayes, earlier, that I'm no planner or whatever, but I've read it and I've read it again and again, and I've discussed it with many people, including those that, whether they be an architect or whatever, and we just haven't got a handle on it. But we figure if you're going to change it, there must be something that underpins that, and we'd really like to have that explanation so that we can go away feeling confident that landscape areas, if anything, should be strengthened within our municipality. I do worry that otherwise, what's to stop people not sort of getting, doing their building, having it signed off by a certifier, and then within 12 months in the green area, the landscape area, they're going to put a patio or a deck out over or whatever. And how do you enforce that? So if you could give us a little bit more explanation, landscaping is really important to our municipality, and the greening and the overall amenity and heritage.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions, Ms. Rosen? No. Ms. Rosen, I just wanted to ask, I know that you're down to speak on another item later on in the meeting. Would you like to address the meeting?
No, I'm not actually.
Statement. Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, we have a recommendation on page 59 of the business paper. Do I have a mover? Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Bagara. Councillors, with your indulgence, could I just bring up the motion? I'm just going to ask, and I've had the director, given our discussion at the last meeting, I've had the director just word this up, as there seemed to be consent. At the end of part 3, the council refer the attached amended scoping proposal to the Department of Planning and Environment for review. Can we add with the inclusion of an outdoor dining provision within the schedule of exempt development of the LEP to read as follows. Part 1 must be associated with an adjacent food and drink premises being carried out with lawful consent. Part 2, if located on the footway of a public road, comma, must be consistent with an approval granted under section 125 of the Roads Act 1993, and part 3 must not be located on land steeper than a 1 to 50 gradient. Just for explanation, councillors, that was the discussion that we had last time, given that we're one of the only councils in Metro Sydney that doesn't have an associated dining policy that allows businesses to make an application through council as opposed to via a DA to put tables and chairs out in outdoor dining areas. Councillors, are you comfortable with that amendment? Yes, that becomes the motion. Councillor Quinn, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Look, yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd simply say, and I am cognizant of all the comments that we've had here tonight, but as we've had said many, many times, this is about a review going forward. It's not about the actual planning proposal. There will be time when there will be public conversation, public consultation about the detail of what goes in. So this is intended to move us forward to that next stage, and that's why I'm happy to support it as it is.
Thank you, councillor. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I really am concerned about the way this is going, and we keep hearing that this is a scoping study. A person of great experience in project management, scoping is the most important part of any project or any activity, that you get it clear, concise, and underpinned by what you want to do. Here we hear this is just a vague document that may or may not end up being, may or may not be supported by appropriate reports, etc. So to me, the whole premise of what we're doing here is flawed and wrong. A scoping study should be clearly defining what we're expecting to achieve out of the review of the LEP and subsequently the DCP. So I reject the scoping study as it currently stands. I've gone to great lengths to provide council and staff a range of issues which, as a councillor and a resident in the community, I would like addressed. That hasn't happened. At the last council meeting, I asked, could we have a councillor workshop so we could sit down and work through these issues and get some clarity and purpose about what we're trying to achieve. I see there is a great disconnect between the aims, which have been improved, and the actual process within the document. For example, we've heard tonight the issue about garden area. The whole aims and objectives is about having this area as a landscaped and garden supported community. One of the key issues that everybody in their submissions has raised. But as we've heard tonight, and as I've seen clearly in the documentation, we're going to diminish that. We're not improving it, we're diminishing it. We're moving away from some of the fundamental pillars which we based our LEP on. this issue of removing conservation areas, picking and choosing in the Davies report some things and not including others. He made recommendations for further inclusions as well as deletions. But as we've heard tonight, that hasn't happened. There's been a cherry picking of issues within it. And as I said before, when we're talking about the overpass and the inappropriate signage and fencing, for council to remove the northern part of the overpass, excise it from our conservation area, is a recipe for disaster. It certainly kicks sand in the face of those people that have gone to a lot of trouble to try and undo the establishment of that fence, or more importantly, the signage. That is just one example. The other example is those areas we're removing the conservation area off will be subjected to complying development. And we've all seen the horrors that go along with complying development in Boronia Park and Gladesville. It is incompatible with what the values and desires of Hunters Hill is all about. We've also heard the issue of excavation, and in the documentation, excavation is a blight on our landscape. You just got, I caught the ferry into the city the other day. You just got to see what they're doing down at Woolwich there to the right of the ferry wharf. It's just amazing. They've taken an enormous amount of a rock face away and brought a house almost down to the water. That happens all over the place. Extensive excavations that don't respect sustainability, don't respect the form and landscape in which our municipality sits within. They're just a few of the issues. I still haven't had an answer to the questions that I've raised, and therefore I can't support this motion at this stage.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, any speakers for the motion? Against the motion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have some, many concerns really about this. I'm very appreciative that a lot of good drafting has been picked up. And as I said at the last meeting, this is an incremental process. The more iterations we take, or an iterative process, the more iterations we take, the better result we get. And both the iterations we've had so far have been very worthwhile. And there's more that can be picked up from what has been said. Two things I want to concentrate on, and as I said, Ms. Tate is the now chair of the trust, has taken over from Dr. Sharp in stealing some of the issues I was going to deal with. Landscaped area is the one that really concerns me most, and Tate made the point that we shouldn't be changing those things without greater studies. Here we have a situation where we're reducing our landscaped areas from 60 to 40% at waterfronts, and reducing them from 50 to 33% inland. Now, I think you've got to look at things in the whole, and one of the points that I've made is that with our landscaped areas, one of the big reasons for them, and getting restoring and maintaining and restoring our tree canopy is incredibly important. But one of the reasons for having landscaped area is to have tree canopy. And there's a provision in our DCP, which is clause 3.3.4, landscaped areas control. And it lists the number of trees that are capable of achieving mature height of 12 metres. 400 metres is only one tree. That's not particularly relevant, given that our minimum lot size is 700 square metres, although we would have significant number of lots that are beneath that. Between 400 and 900, so that will cover probably the majority of places, it's 3 trees. Above 900 metres, or 900 square metres, it's 5 trees. One of the things we constantly find that comes to the Conservation Advisory Panel we have many proposals that are compliant in terms of landscaped area, but it's absolutely impossible to fit the number of trees that the DCP required. And you've only got to think about it. I mean, a decent tree that stands 12 metres high could have a breadth of something like 10 metres. So 3 of those is going to occupy something like 300 square metres. And that's a pretty decent chunk of a 900 square metre lot. In fact, it's a lot if we were reduced to 1/3. So this, I think, these sort of flaws really need to be fixed up before this document travels any further, even though we're told it's only a scoping proposal. One of the things that I prefer councillors to is a table that I prepared, which appears on 159 or page 159 of the business paper. The table compares the landscaped area provisions, and these for Hunters Hill presently, Hunters Hill as proposed, Mossman, and the code set. Now, the reason I've included Mossman is that it's similar to Hunters Hill in as much as it's a peninsula, in their case between Middle Harbour and the main harbour, rather than between Lane Cove River and Parramatta River. One of the interesting things is they do not have a provision for a different provision for foreshore or for foreshore properties. The reason for that is they only have about 140 private waterfront places in their whole municipality. We would have about 140 between Baronia Park and Onions Point. So I understand that why they would only have a landscaped area of 50% for all blocks over 900 square metres. Now, if we get the current provisions or the provisions we're proposing, we're going right down to 33% in non-waterfront and 40% in waterfront. Both of those are well below Mossman and for the larger lots. The scary thing about it, though, is that in some instances, the provisions we're proposing in the scoping proposal are even less than the code set. Now, the code set is giving us all sorts of problems in our in the areas where complying development is proposed. In the code set, by the top, probably the most relevant one to look at is 750 to 900 square metres. They're proposing 30%. On other sites under the LEP, we will be 33, but still above or still better than the code set. But the problem is when you get into the larger lots, the code set is specifying for above 900 square metres, 40%. For us, yes, it'd be 40% for landscape, for waterfront, and 33% for other. So, I mean, having a provision that's same as a code set on our river or waterfront lots is just simply unacceptable. That's why I would strongly advocate that before this scoping proposal is submitted, we increase the or leave them as they were more to a point. For the waterfront areas, the percentage should remain 60%, and for the others it should be 50%. Now, as I said, we're already having trouble getting enough trees in. This is a provision that needs to be tightened, and it seems a sensible provision by excluding the hard landscape for it. The unfortunate thing about this, the justification for the reduced landscaped area has been that there was an analysis done that if you were to convert all of your hard landscaping to building, that you should still be able to, or it shouldn't be any greater than that amount. So the analysis was quite flawed, and I suggested it should be removed. The trouble is that the analysis has been removed, but we're still left with the result of the analysis in the document we propose to submit. As I've indicated in the table, and I hope people will look at that the landscaped areas are just insufficient. The other one I want to touch on is the conservation areas. And I'd refer to the attachments, and there is a minutes of a meeting of the Conservation Advisory Panel, and we were told the Conservation Advisory Panel supported the removal of the conservation areas. That wasn't the case. When you look at it, the only conservation area that was really specifically referred to in those minutes was the one at Portwood Point. Now, our former panel member, Brian McDonald, had a very strong view about Portwood Point and it not belonging in the conservation area. The panel went along with the views of Mr. McDonald, but we didn't in other areas. It was purely Portwood Point. Portwood Point had the benefit of being, as we've heard elsewhere, I think, the being within a water or within a riverfront area, and therefore the complying development couldn't apply. So I think it's vital that we keep the integrity of our heritage conservation areas. The other thing about those minutes, I mean, we supported the view of Paul Davies that we should be looking at the additional conservation area, which is centred around the northern part of Massey Street, Gladesville. The other thing that we included was that there was a suggestion made about the north side of Princess Street. That hasn't been looked at. There is far more potential to increase our heritage conservation areas than to reduce them. So I don't want to be reducing our heritage conservation areas without there being a proper analysis of the ones that we should be including. So they're my two concerns, and again, I reiterate Dr. Oh, sorry, everyone's getting PhDs tonight, but I never had an aspiration to get one. Masters is fine for me. As Councillor Williams said earlier, if we remove the Burns Bay Road area from the heritage conservation area, we're asking for a sign like we've had put on the south side of the overpass to be put on the north side.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. You might have gone slightly over time there, but sorry, but we weren't timing you. Any speakers for the motion? Councillor Preston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've heard on multiple occasions to date by our experts that there are significant issues, errors and inconsistencies with our existing LEP. I consider the report before council tonight to be thorough and in light of the submissions from community members and organisations. I think that the opportunity cost of holding up the process and delaying the review and receiving of feedback from the department is council's ability to actually get moving on our application, lodging with the department and actually starting a proper formal consultation process. I hear what everyone's saying. I appreciate the community's interest and due diligence and in some cases expertise on all of these matters. And I understand that there are a number of things that haven't been included in this scoping proposal as it is just a pre-lodgement exercise. And it does note in the report on multiple occasions that this is not definitive and it is not final and it is not exhaustive. So I trust the council staff's ability to consider more broadly the issues that need to be considered so that we do rectify those issues, inconsistencies and errors that exist in our current LEP. And the quicker that we do that, the faster that we can address the kind of taking advantage of these loopholes or these issues in the LEP as it stands. And I think that that is a bigger issue at the moment in the current stage of the process that we're in, rather than getting in every kind of piece of detail into this pre-lodgement document. I think we can deal with that at a later stage, and therefore I'm supportive of the council to go ahead with the submission of the scoping proposal to the department.
Thank you, Councillor Preston. Any other speakers against? For? Just before Councillor Quinn's right of reply, just in terms of the process that's taken place thus far, and I'm a big advocate for benchmarking, I don't think that there would be a single council in Metro Sydney that would have had the extensive consultation prior to a scoping document that this council has. I thank the staff and our consultants for the extraordinary amount of work that they've put into this scoping document. The process in any other council would be that the staff internally prepare a scoping document. It comes to council without any consultation. It is then sent to the department for their feedback, and then it formulates a formal planning proposal by the council for consultation. We scrapped that. We have had full formal consultation, including several meetings with the Hunters Hill Trust, with CAP, with local planners, with all of the relevant authorities that we deem necessary to get feedback from. We have put that together into a scoping document that will go to the department, not with definitive aims. That will be a process undertaken in the formal part of the assessment of a planning proposal that hasn't been formulated yet. It is the equivalent of, prior to going to a pre-DA meeting for your home, doing a full consultation on the DA prior to a pre-lodgement meeting. That's what this council's done. We appreciate the community interest and feedback that you've given us so far. It has enabled us to hone the scoping document to where it is today, which is a really thorough document. So I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Steve and Mitchell and his staff and the consultants that have put an enormous amount of effort into making sure that the Hunters Hill community has been listened to and thoroughly involved in the process at the very beginning, because this is the start of a journey that's going to take another 12 or 18 months. And there are going to be ample opportunities throughout that process for everyone, be it the Hunters Hill Trust, be it an individual resident of Hunters Hill, to make submissions to a formal planning proposal. That being said, Councillor Quinn, right of reply.
Mr. Mayor, I think it's all been said.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. We now move back to item 4.1, Gladesville Master Plan. There is a recommendation on page 5. Got a mover? Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn?
No, Mr. Mayor, I
Thank
think
you.
similar, we just want to
Yes.
get this one moving forward.
Thank you. Councillors, any other speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is unanimous. I now move to item 4.3. Community grants 23-24 on page 178. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Just a question, given I was absent. Sorry, 173. I just note that there was an item, Villa Maria Catholic Primary School, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander flag. It says seek additional quotes and costing appears high compared to other similar flagpole projects. Is that something we recommended to look at in the future, or?
To be fair, Mr. Mayor, I would have to
Sorry,
ask
Ms. Goodman.
Annie, who chaired that meeting. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What the committee will do, or sorry, the panel will do following tonight's resolution is write to all of the successful and unsuccessful grant applicants, and with Villa Maria Public School, sorry, Primary School, we would seek their, I guess, support to get additional quotes, because the quote that they did receive we felt was quite high compared to other flagpole quotes that both myself and other panel members had seen from time to time. So we would just put a recommendation forward to them to seek additional quotes and see if their P&C could somehow fund a better costing for that. I think that they actually quoted something in the light of $1,500 for a flagpole, and we felt that that was probably a little high, that around $800 would be more on the money compared to flagpoles we had seen.
Okay, as long as they can be. Sorry, Councillor
Question.
Vergara.
Sorry, I might have misread this. So they miss out on this, right?
Correct.
I didn't understand that to be what we had resolved. I understood that we resolved that it was high but that they would get something less than what they asked for.
That was going to be the case if the amount of money, the 20,000, wasn't allocated to all of the recipients that we had asked a couple of questions of. If the recipients that we had asked questions of came back to us with an answer which wasn't keeping within the criteria of the grant funding, then we were going to allocate $500 each to both schools.
What I'm not aware of that either. What were the applicants in which respect we were asking questions of?
So
sorry, I might just forget, but I just generally don't remember at the moment.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have my notes in front of me. I only can go by the report that's within the paper. So I did take notes as we worked through each application and noted that within the body of the report to the total of all of the submissions to reach $20,000. My notes indicate that had we had an additional $1,000 left over, that we would allocate those to each of the schools. However, given the total funding as I worked through each one, I saw clarity from a few of the applicants, including one of the applicants for the sporting grant, in additionally to UA3 and a couple of others, just to seek what they were specifically asking for in regards to the criteria, and felt that it was meeting the criteria outlined within the policy framework.
I do not understand that to be, because that's not my recollection of the decisions made.
So were you on the panel?
Was.
Yes, and Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, well, the question I've got is, was any inquiry made of Montefiore about the, oh, sorry, no, of Villa Maria about the cost of the flagpoles?
No, I did not inquire to Villa Maria about the cost of the flagpole.
Okay.
Can we resolve it this way? Could I ask through you, Chair, Councillor Sanderson, if he's comfortable that that reflects the meeting, then I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm comfortable to proceed.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, my recollection, I want to stress that it is a recollection of the meeting, was that the two core comments have made that the price that they had indicated for the price of the flagpole was excessive. And secondly, there seemed to be fairly strong consensus that it was, I guess, a responsibility in the remit of the P&F. More so, council. That's my recollection of that discussion.
Question I have, and don't shoot me, Maria. Could we stretch the friendship to an additional $1,000 if we resolve that tonight to give to the two schools?
Well, just before the director answers that through you, Mr. Mayor, your other option, and look, we're at your discretion over $1,000, but the council overall does have the discretion to, hypothetically, to reduce the allocation to any other applicant to gain that funding, so to speak.
And sorry, one clarification. My understanding was that for the cool room floor, we declined that on the basis it was very clearly a P&C issue with no societal benefit. Yep. But for a flagpole, which was going to display an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flag, we thought, yes, it's too high, but it fitted our RAP and other strategic objectives, so we would give them something. And I understood that we hadn't allocated it all. So that's my very firm recollection.
Councillor Vigara might have just saved us $500.
And cost you $500.
Yeah. Councillors, I'm at your, if you'd like to move that way and we allocate something to them, we'll have to do it formally. But I'm in your hands.
I'm comfortable that if Councillor Sanderson is comfortable that the resolution appropriately reflects what we agreed at that meeting, then I'll support it.
As in the paper?
Yes.
Look, at this stage, it is not I think my recollection's closer to what the General Manager explained. And but at the end of the day, I would rather not disturb the resolution we've had. I don't think the issue is that great. I mean, maybe we can put up a fourth flagpole and fly the municipal flag as well.
Okay, do we have a move and seconder? Yes, moved. Okay. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.4, Citizen of the Year Award. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion?
I'd like to nominate.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I'd simply say that this responds to that question that I'd sent through earlier in the month
Yes.
regarding the additional categories. So thank you to the officer for clarifying that.
The motion requests the additional 2 councillors.
Yes.
I'd like to nominate to be one of those.
Yes, Councillor Williams. We have a nominee, another nominee.
I'm happy to do it.
Councillor Quinn.
That's volunteering, not nominating, but.
Yeah, okay. Sure, nominate.
I nominate councillor Quinn.
Okay, and Councillor Sanderson nominates Councillor. Are there any other nominations?
We're both.
If not, we're in complete agreement then. We have Councillor Quinn and Councillor Williams as additional members of that panel. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Sorry, madam, is there any item in particular you wanted to address?
I think she was here for the community grants.
Oh, good.
But she's now heard the.
I hope not from Villa Maria. Otherwise we'd be in trouble. Okay, very good. Welcome. Item 4.5, compliance and enforcement policy. Is there a mover? Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion?
I ask
Councillor Williams, question.
I'm reading the document, compliance and enforcement policy. I can't see there anywhere about boat trailer enforcement. Is that not included in this policy, or?
Thank you.
We have
Thank you, councillor,
the director.
for you. Yes, that's a good point. That will be addressed in a separate policy. So in terms of the boats and trailers. Is that correct? Boats and trailers?
We already have.
We have one. We have
I
a
think
boat trailer policy, I believe.
I think we are updating that one though.
I was just
Yeah,
wondering.
we are
why it's not
updating that.
referenced in here as something.
That's a good point, because we are updating it. We can actually add that to it once that's been updated, but I know that we do have an existing one that we can make reference to. I think it was just an oversight.
Okay, with the, sorry, General Manager.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just potentially for the purposes tonight in relation to Councillor Williams, the other option is to, at the councillor's discretion, to include within that policy that's before you tonight, that it's actually stated that there is a link embedded to the specific policy around boats. That's how I would handle it.
Are we happy to include the boat trailer policy in this enforcement policy, councillors? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, we'll add that to the recommendation.
Can I ask?
Councillor Williams.
It follows on in relation to enforcement of the boat trailer policy. It obviously still is there. Is it usual for if residents make requests in relation to boats they believe are inappropriately located, that enforcement would follow in accordance with the policy? I have had feedback that a particular reference to a boat and trailer, the response was that it conformed to the Roads Act because it was licensed or whatever. Just a bit confused as to where that policy currently sits and fits within. Obviously, we're now highlighting it as a factor within the enforcement.
General Manager.
Mr Mayor, I'd be a little bit reluctant to just make a generalised response to the situation. I don't know specifically what I'm dealing with, but I'm happy to take the comment on notice and discuss it with Councillor Williams after the meeting.
Yes, now happy to forward the email on to.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. It's a constant problem, as we all know. I'm sure we all have complaints from time to time. Councillors, any other discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Is that against? Four. Carried unanimously. Hunters Hill Council Annual Report, item 4.6. 22-23. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? Councillor Quinn? If not,
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I just say it's the way it's presented. I find it easy to read, the dashboard approach and so on. I think it's a great way to present a report. So well done to the team that's done.
thank you, Councillor Quinn. Councillor Williams, you've got
Just some questions,
Question.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the responsible officer. On page 212, there's a list of what councillors have done in terms of professional development. I was just wondering what the $121.43 is assigned my name comprised of. And it's a bit odd that has sense after it where the mayor and deputy mayors doesn't. It could read one 12,143. But I'm just curious because everybody seems to be assigned $121.43.
General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am going to have to refer to the Director of People and Culture who has oversight of that budget and prepared this section of the report.
Thank you. So that amount would have been just divided through various courses that we had. So whether that be code of conduct, so what was the other one? There was one on cybersecurity training. So that was just divvied up. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Any other questions? Councillor Williams.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. A question in relation to page 214 and 216, where there's comments in relation to expenditure. The pie charts and the tables below, although have different components and for different purposes, operational income, I believe, is a different category than overall income. Both appear to be the same in terms of 22 million and in income and 20 million in expenditure. Is that an error or is that right? Just to me, looking at that, there seems to be a carryover of diagrams that don't necessarily relate to the categories below. But anyway,
Sorry, councillor. What specifically do you think is duplicated?
well, if you look at the top of page 214
Yes.
and 216, the pie chart or the charts there are identical, but as I understand, are servicing different processes. One is
yes.
overall income and the other is operational income. I could be wrong, but that to me looked a bit odd.
The donut holes are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the subsequent summaries.
So yeah, I take your point. Page 216. I think that there's a titling error in the whole of the donuts. Because the figures are different, but the quantums. 2.069270. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, Director.
Yeah, through the General Manager. Just to answer that question, they're broken up by service categories. So the first one is by income and expenditure as they're presented on financial statements. And then there's another section in the financial statements where you break it up by the IPNR. So,
okay,
so you've got governance, participation, character and heritage place. So they're the themes, but in terms of the table, Councillor Ross Williams, you are specifically talking about the operational income table, is that right?
Both.
Oh, well, that's broken up, as you say, into the operational categories. But for instance, on 214, you've got inclusion of capital grants and contributions. Anyway, I just raised it as something that didn't sit in a consistent fashion in the way I read it. I'd be happy for you guys to have a closer look at.
I actually have to say, Councillor Williams, having looked at it again, the pie charts are actually different. They're just reflective of the total income and total expenditure. So I actually see that as fine.
However, I might be wrong here, but the operational income table, for example, actual 2022-23, those four figures above don't add up to $22,000.
needs to,
Sorry.
through the general
Director.
manager, I will go back and review. I believe we need to perhaps look at that service result table, and I'll go back and double check that one.
Okay. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Williams.
I don't really want to pick unnecessarily, but just on page 218, all the other tables in the document have tables. Just for clarity and ability to read, they don't have tables of what those categories are about. You just might consider putting those in.
Thank you, councillor. Any other questions? Any speakers for or against? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, could I just,
General Manager.
first of all, thank you to councillor Williams for that feedback. Appreciate it. But I do want to put on record that often in council meetings, you get presented with reports and documents. I just want to pay tribute to the staff. That's an enormous amount of work to generate that annual report. And visually, we have come in regards to Councillor Quinn's comments. Our visual presentation of this report to where we were a few years ago has come a long way. So I think it's really important that I, as a general manager, just place on record my appreciation to the staff for all their efforts, because it's hours and hours and hours of work, and all that photography that's in there, we haven't paid a cent for that. For what it's worth, the vast majority of those photos were taken by staff on their own time. So I just want to thank them.
Thank you, General Manager.
No,
Item
if I may, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor, I think the
Councillor Quinn.
councillors would also echo those same comments to the General Manager. as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, councillor Quinn. Item 4.7, quarterly budget review as at 30 September 23. Is there a mover? Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry,
I just
Councillor
question.
Sanderson.
Yes, on page 242 of the business paper, there's an item in the column other than QVRS, which is quarterly budget review statement, which is called special purpose unexpended grants. The amount is minus $981,087. What does that relate to?
Sorry, councillor, page 242.
Yep.
Special purpose.
Yeah, second column.
Yes.
The main heading is
Specific purpose unexpended grants. Third item down.
That's correct.
Yes. You're asking what that is?
Yeah.
Director.
Yeah, through the general manager. So that column just before September quarterly budget review are all our carryover funds. So we put that within that column. So there'll be an amalgamation of several different grants that we haven't finished and that we bring over.
Any other questions, councillor? No. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.8, summary of council investments as at 31st October. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.9, development applications determined under delegated authority in October 2023. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Williams. Councillors are on a roll. Any discussion? Councillor Vergara.
I have a question.
Question.
So on page 271,
271.
the second table from the top, development application number 2023/0103.
15 Abigail Street.
No, 113 Pittwater Road.
What?
Are you in item
What-
4.9?
Sorry, am I in a different? What are we at?
4.9. Yes.
Yeah, I'm at 4.9. 271.
Yes. Second one down. 113 Pittwater Road.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is? I just didn't understand what the installation of a wall-mounted digital LED sign panel was.
Through you, Mayor, it's a digital sign, a small digital sign on the school.
That's the school sign, is it?
Yeah. It's not big ones.
Yeah, I know. It faces the other way, so we're okay with it.
Councillors, any other questions?
Yeah, I think I have more. No, that was it. Thank you.
Other councillors with questions? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 4.10, report on legal matters, October 2023. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Priest. Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Not discussion, just a question. I was just wondering on page 277, that item, it says, however, matter adjourned to 24th of October 2024. Has it been adjourned for that long, or and clearly it's about a potential acid sulfate issue, which I would have thought could be resolved relatively quickly. I'm just wondering if that date's correct. It seems
Through you, Mayor, I believe it's correct, but I'll double check that. The court is full, packed at the moment. If you appeal an application today, you won't get a hearing till June next year. So I'll double check that. It's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn.
Just if I may, I know they haven't appeared on these reports in the past, but the whether it's escalated to this level yet, 8 William Street, Henley.
Through you, Mayor. It will be escalated, and yes, you'll see probably in the new year an outcome of this one, because the matter has gone to that stage right now.
Councillor Priest.
I just had a question, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director of Planning about the first item on page 276, one that's incurred all the fees. It says that the council has provided without prejudice feedback. And I just wondered if, Steve, you might be able to just give a quick synopsis of what's happened there.
Purpose. Number one, which is
26 Farnell Street.
Farnell.
Yes, through you, Mayor. That's current with us at the moment. We're still working on it. It's a childcare centre.
Yeah.
And quickly they've resolved. They have, I can't say too much because the matter's still in the courts. However, things are moving along on a positive for council and to resolve those issues. And there's a plan of management that we're trying to work on at the moment. But the hearing will happen on site November. Sorry.
Okay.
Shortly. There will be a hearing, possibly in the new year, on site, and all the residents will be invited along to have their say to the commissioner. So it's won't be resolved without that process.
Okay.
But most of the issues on traffic and plan of management with regard to the school and the driveway are coming closer to a resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Vergara.
So the hearings are 13th and 14th of December.
Sorry, that was the date I was looking for. Yeah, that's where we're going to meet.
Where did you say that?
It's in the report.
Matter listed.
But sorry, it's just, it was before the November date. So I just-
Earmarked for conciliation meeting on site. It starts at 9:30 on site, then we go back to the court to resolve the issue, and all those issues will be up front, and we hear what the community has to say, and we look at how we have come to a conclusion.
Okay, but my question is, it says awaiting notice of motion from the applicant. Council's the applicant. What's the motion we're bringing?
We're putting a motion, we're asking them for a plan of management, how they're going to manage how they're going to manage the children during the operations of the use.
Councillors, any other questions? If not, I'll put the motion. Sorry.
Just with that,
Director.
I'm also going offline in the court and asking them for costs associated with this. Under the Act, you can't ask for costs, but I am asking for costs because why should council go all that way? And I've asked the other side to consider that.
Thank you, Director. All those, sorry, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Item 4.11, councillor briefings and workshops. Moved, Councillor Quinn, seconded, Councillor Priest. And any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. With Councillor Vergara just getting in on that one. Item 4.12, minutes of the Audit Risk and Improvement Committee held 4th of October. Moved Councillor Williams, seconded Councillor Quinn. All those in, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried unanimously with Councillor Vergara out of the room. Item 4.13, minutes of Cultural and Events Advisory Committee held on the 2nd of November 2023. Moved Councillor Prieston, seconded Councillor Williams. Any discussion? Councillor Prieston.
Thank you. I just wanted to also mention that we did have initial indication from the members of our committee that they could attend on this night. So the fact that we didn't have quorum at the start of the meeting was completely unanticipated. Nonetheless, we're tracking really well on the committee. We've got a pretty big agenda. We had a pretty big agenda for this year. But in this particular meeting, convening of the committee, Councillor Williams attended as well. We heard from Loretta Delbridge, who has taken over the Hunters Hill Musical Society from Jeffrey, which is really exciting. And I just wanted to note that because I noticed that we proposed to give the society a grant under the community grants funding program, which I think is really great because she did kind of express to the committee that as she's kind of getting the society back on its feet pretty much herself, that the funding or any funding provided from council or other organisations is really helpful and doesn't go astray. And then separately, I just wanted to touch on item 3.5 of the meeting minutes, the markets in Hunters Hill. This is something that I'm really passionate about and have been passionate about since my campaign for council in 2021. We are progressing with an organisation that has expressed interest in bringing back a local food market to the area. As you will all know, there used to be one at Riverside Girls High for many years, and it ended up having to be canned for reasons mainly around logistics and other issues that the vendors experienced getting in and out of that site and using that site. So the current kind of, well, I want to say applicant, but I don't know if they've applied directly with the what's the body called? Harbour Trust.
Harbour Trust.
Sydney Harbour Trust.
Sydney Harbour Trust. They have to apply directly to the Harbour Trust to have it on the sites they're looking at. So I'm not sure if they've done that as yet, but basically they're scoping out a few different areas and they'll come back to us with what they think, which I think is really exciting.
Thank you, Councillor Prieston. I will just say of Mrs. Delbridge that it's great that someone's taken up the cudgels of the Hunters Hill Music Society, because Jeffrey Chard obviously is getting to a point where he couldn't carry that on. So the fact that someone's picked up the torch and is running with that's a very good thing.
The caliber of that person is very impressive.
Yeah, good. Councillors, any other questions or comments or discussion on item 4.13? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried unanimously. Item 4.14, minutes of the School Principals Liaison Committee held 2nd of November. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, that is carried unanimously. Item 4.15, minutes of the Sports and Recreation Advisory Committee held on 11th October 2023. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, against, is that against?
No,
Yep. In favour, carried unanimously. Item 5.1, correspondence from the Office of the Honourable Paul Scully, Minister for Planning and Public Spaces. This is just for noting, councillors. Do I have a mover? Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Vergara. Any discussion? Councillor Williams.
Does somebody going to speak for the motion?
I'll speak against it.
Can speak against the motion. Yep.
It's I would hope that rather than just receive and note this report, the council would respond to what is basically a a letter from the minister that is giving us direction, which I believe will be detrimental to outcomes which Hunters Hill has, and also during the LEP DCP review process. To me, this requires a response from council, and one that articulates what has been done in the past with the Greater Sydney Commission, which clearly identified the limitations or the reasons why Hunters Hill is not able to be intensified in terms of its built form and its development. Townhouses, to me, would be contrary to the landscape and the environment which we have. And again, we've always talked about residential flat buildings. So I think it deserves more than just receive a note. It needs a report from staff and as to the impact of this and the expectations of this, so that we can write to the minister informing of that position that this letter is not acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. I'm sure that we can get the staff to put appropriate responses together. Just for clarification, though, this is Minister Scully's response from our letter, basically objecting to the new SEP code, which was a resolution of council that I write to him to basically say exactly what you've said.
That's acknowledged, but it
yes,
needs to be followed up with
just
as stern a response.
Any other speakers, councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried with the dissent of Councillor Williams and Sanderson. We now move to questions with notice. We have a question from Councillor Sanderson with respect to the Montefiore planning proposal. Councillor Sanderson, there is a written response to your question.
So that seems to be satisfactory. The only thing I'll just clarify when the report in the second last paragraph refers to the assessment report, that is purely the report that was written for the business paper on the extraordinary meeting of 12th of September, and that was just the report by the director. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillors, is there any other business arising before we go into closed session? If not, I'll ask for a motion to move into closed session. Moved Councillor Quinn, seconded Councillor Prieston. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Stream and close the doors. Thank